were taking place, but when I heard 1,700 since June,
this system has allowed my landlord to illegally evict me and my children. We are in the middle of a pandemic. Strictly don't even give a damn about the CDC eviction moratorium.
Our purpose is to disrupt the eviction process and slow down the eviction filings and hearings at scale. We want to see a % reduction in writs of execution and sheriff's evictions, which are the really brutal kind of end stage of that formal process where the sheriff shows up and actually changes the lock and forces someone out of their home once and for all.
No one wants to evict because by the time you get to that point, you've missed several months worth of a mortgage payment and rent payments, and you're in dire straits. I'm talking about surviving today in the middle of a pandemic.
The courts clearly have license to issue their own moratoriums. That's clear from the federal government. That's clear from the authority that Judge Byrne used previously when he issued a moratorium. It's always dangerous to evict people and then extremely dangerous during a pandemic.
The eviction moratorium helps no one. And so when the moratorium ends, everybody's in trouble. I'm in trouble because I haven't been able to make my mortgage payment since I have a housing provider. The tenant's in trouble because now all of a sudden, where they couldn't make a $500, $600 a month payment, now they're expected to pay $3,000 or $4,000 all at once. The way to prevent an eviction is to get the rent paid. And I'm talking directly to United Way. And they have money that, if not spent, will go back at the end of this month to the federal government. The money is here. Energy could be put up front in preventing the eviction to begin with. Then on the other end, trying to extend the eviction moratorium, which extends the problems and the damage to those tenants who do end up partaking in it.
Landlords have been able to continue filing cases. They've been able to continue prosecuting cases. The law only stops that tenant from being forcibly removed from their house, but the court process can still go forward, unfortunately.
The current moratorium from the CDC does not prevent us from filing evictions based on a tenant's criminal activity. They're threatening the health or safety of other residents, damaging or posing immediate or significant threat to the property, violating housing codes. Can we terminate for something other than non-payment of rent? I mean, a lot of non-paying tenants are also bad actors. They are also not good housekeepers. They have a lot of problems in their life. There's many reasons.
And the CDC puts forth 5 ways that you can do that you see here. I don't need to read them to you. The most useful one is violating any other contractual obligation other than timely payment of rent.
We don't want to be saying false things to the court. That would not be good, especially in this political environment. It is limited to non-payment of rent cases, but we're having to make up a lot of things.
What the federal government did is they issued kind of really a quasi-moratorium that only comes into play if a tenant actually learns about it and then exercises their rights under it. And so there's a whole lot of tenants out there who don't know about the moratorium, don't know that they have to file a declaration in order to be protected by it, and oftentimes really need legal advice and attorney to assist them in analyzing whether or not they even qualify for the moratorium. There's some types of evictions that it doesn't apply to at all. We're hearing from a lot of tenants right now who are getting notices to vacate. They have tried to negotiate. A lot of landlords are just flat out refusing to negotiate.
So I got home Sunday afternoon and see this paper under my door, and it said eviction notice, and right away I was like, crap, did I forget to pay rent? Did I what did I do? What did I do wrong? And then it's we're renovating.
I'm currently on quarantine right now for 2 weeks, recovering from COVID. If this hadn't happened to me this select 2 weeks, and it had happened January 31st, I could not be moving right now. I could not be carrying boxes. I could not be going up and down 5 flights of stairs. I'd make it up and down once and be gasping for air. Statistically, there's got to be at least one person in here moving out during that time that's going to have COVID.
Yeah.
We don't have an elevator, so people are going to be literally killing themselves to move out.
So I do not apologize whatsoever. Financially, it's really not a smart thing for me to do, but kind of been in my mind here for a couple of years. It's ever a building needed a renovation, the Alps is the one. I want my tenants to have reliable heat, reliable water pressure, plumbing, drain lines, supply lines, electrical lines. Got to bust open the walls. And how the heck can people live there if we're busting open the walls? I know it's the responsible thing to do, and I take my responsibility to my tenants very seriously.
He's spinning it as if he's doing it for us. It just doesn't add up.
There is no benefit to us to have these improvements, because I think, like you said, a lot of us chose to live here and sign those, agreements of asbestos and lead paint and all of these things because this is what we could afford. And nobody's saying, oh, we'd love that. We'd love those issues, but it's like, that's what we can afford. So clearly we're already kind of stretched. We're struggling to find deposits in new housing and extend leases past the time that we might have had other plans. We're creating an entirely different timeline for not only ourselves, but our pockets.
He knows what a January is like. He knows that we are in a pandemic. It's the complete refusal to understand the climate and the context of it.
Today we're just going through and getting door-to-door signatures for tenants to sign off on a possible list of demands that they will try to unionize and argue for.
Over 45 tenants in this building have signed on to fight Dale Hedge Path as they are being displaced.
We, the residents of the Alps Apartments, have formed a tenant union and demand the following: reimbursement for any rent increase paid in 2020, reimbursement for December 2020 rent, security deposits returned in full to each tenant by January 1st, 2021, construction dumpsters provided for tenants' use while moving, no fines or legal actions to be levied against tenants during or after the next 2 months, no rent collecting for January 2021.
I feel like it would be perfectly reasonable if he had replied and said something like, hey, I can't reimburse December rent, but I can do this. He could have negotiated, and yet all he said was LOL.
We're just asking for things that are like decent.
Will spend zero energy on their list of demands. Are they upset because it's January? Are they upset because it's COVID? Are they upset because the rents will go up after renovations? I gave a 68-day notice. If I was a lesser of a landlord, I would just sit back and enjoy those 85 people giving me a rent check each month, and I would, continue to hot glue and duct tape the place together. And if I did that, Casey tenants and the tenants would be unhappy with me. They want landlords to be, your feet held to the fire. They want landlords to provide clean, functional, affordable living units. On the other hand, they're getting upset when a landlord is doing exactly that. What do they want from me? When it comes time for me to pay property taxes, I can't tell the county that, I'm affected by COVID. I can't tell my insurance carrier, I can't pay the premium this year. I can't tell my gas company and electric and water, I have to pay those bills. I don't quite know exactly what the problem is and what they would have me do different.
Landlords have a lot of power. If you don't pay rent, they have the full right to put you out on the street. And landlords are not accustomed to having to negotiate with tenants. And they're not accustomed to tenants standing up and asserting their rights. And so the culture, as far as I can tell from my side, is one that's not very accommodating generally. Landlords have a choice on whether this is an industry they want to get into. Tenants don't. Our housing system is in the hands of the marketplace. If it makes sense to make more profit by charging more rents, landlords are going to do that, even if wages are not keeping up with that. And so that's why we have an eviction crisis. It shouldn't be looked at through a lens of landlord versus tenant. It needs to be looked at as the human right that housing is.
And it's setting people up to look at us as enemies instead of people who have chosen to invest our dollars in housing, to provide housing for those that need it.
When you talk about landlords, it's kind of hard to paint them with one brush. It's a very diverse group, and there's a lot of big corporate management companies out there that can afford to work with tenants, that can afford to make some sacrifice during this time when everybody is having to sacrifice. For those landlords who can afford to make some sacrifice and waive back rent and work with tenants, we really urge them to do that.
All evictions are after the fire.
There are thousands of tenants on the eviction docket in Jackson County and in surrounding areas that are highly vulnerable to being forced onto the streets during a time when obviously evictions will likely be a death sentence for a lot of people. And we've disrupted about 365 evictions and delayed those to 2021, but those evictions are coming up on the calendar again. So we've got our work cut out for ourselves come January.
We're expecting there to be a very ugly situation come January.
We're going to have a run on the courthouses with people being evicted, which is dangerous and unfortunate because then they'll be homeless with debt hanging over their shoulders, with bad credit in the middle of winter. We're going to have a lot of housing providers lose their own personal housing as well. They're going to lose their rental investments either through foreclosure or they're going to sell them because they can't sustain it and it's too stressful. And then the corporate Wall Street investors are going to come and buy up all of the properties that are here, renovate them and raise the rents, and then we're going to be in a worse problem than we're in now.
We all need housing. Everybody needs housing. What we really need is good, strong public policy and not to have to rely on the goodwill of landlords, because I'm sure it's there sometimes, but oftentimes it's not. And that's just not going to do the trick for the kinds of problems we're facing.